Hello and welcome to Film Slam Stream's post-film conversation for Blackout. My name is Eric Siler, and I'm an instructor of film, media arts, and communication, as well as moderator for this conversation. We are very pleased to be joined by the director of Blackout, Andrew Reid, who's joining us from California. Hello, Andrew, and welcome.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here as well. This is a very interesting film. And I just really enjoyed the really impactful display that it had. And I know this came about during COVID. So can you explain a little bit about how this idea of the film came out and how you executed it?
Yeah, so the film was a part of a program called Film Independence Project Involved, which champions filmmakers from underrepresented communities to come together and make a short film. It just so happened the year that I participated in this program, though, was the COVID year. So it was like the worst year to be filming anything. I mean, we couldn't be in the same room with each other. So that being said, my team, we challenged ourselves with like, how can we tell a project with a large scope that resonates with all of us, that challenges us as we continue to grow our skills as filmmakers, while something we're all very proud of, and Blackout is the result.
Okay, great. Now, with this project, is this a script that you already had ready? Are you just looking for an opportunity to shoot it, or did you come up with this idea specifically for this project?
So, Film and Project Involved matches you with a team. So I was matched with a writer, I was matched with a cinematographer, I was matched with an editor. And it was a conversation that we had internally as a group. Justenia wrote the script, and we just tried to find themes that we all felt passionate about. And one that kept coming up with us was having a woman in a position of power and still being in that position of power and being challenged by the system and the forces around her, which we were like, well, how can we do that differently? And we were like, well, I've never seen that in space before. And we were like, all right, well, and that's kind of how it like led into this action sci-fi thriller that is the end result of the short film.
Great. Let's talk a little bit about the production process. You actually had to work with the writer. So when you read a draft of the script, what input and what changes did you suggest so it could help your style of directing?
Yeah, I think it's especially important when you're telling the lead is a Black woman, and we thought it was very important that a woman write this film. And not only that, to share her perspective. So when Jasenia delivered a draft of the script, I made sure I spoke to my sister, that I sent the story to other female colleagues I have in my social circles who are in positions of power, and say, have you experienced some of these microaggressions or challenges by those around you? Because I think we're living in an age of filmmaking where what really connects us a lot to the storytelling, besides the entertainment value, is the authenticity. And we tried to make it as authentic as possible. So I made sure to do my due diligence as a director and make sure that I was imbuing that authenticity with the story we were telling.
Were there specific items that you've tweaked in the script from when you first saw the draft?
Yes, one of the things that I did was I pulled back on some of the microaggressions, so they were a little bit more subtle. I think it's usually these like more passive aggressive nature of conversation is the truth of what we live in. It's not on the surface. So I think a lot of the earlier drafts were very surface, like that's so blatantly rude, or that's so, it's so obvious. I was like, we need to pull back, we need to make it more layered. So that was one of the things I really focused on when adding my notes to the past.
Okay, so the script is completed, and it's time to actually cast this. How did you find your actors for this film?
We were very fortunate that in our filmmaking network, we already have had worked with so many talented actors, and it was COVID, so it wasn't like we had access for me to be in a room with an actor and see them audition. So this actor, the lead, Sabongale, how I even came into contact with her was that our cinematographer, Alan Ho, he knew, he had worked with her brother, and he was like, you should look at her, she's amazing. I looked at her work, I was a huge fan. We Zoomed, very much synergy. And that's how we got her. So there wasn't even a casting director involved, although normally you would have a casting director to assist with these positions.
Now, having Stephanie, she's African, she's from Zimbabwe, in a lead role. And one of the challenges, I guess, as a director and a cinematographer is when you work with people of color is to properly light them and make sure they're seen, you know, and heard properly. Can you tell us about some of the challenges you may have experienced in working with someone of color?
You know, fortunately for, from, with my personal experiences and the cinematographer's experiences, we have had so many experiences when it comes to lighting people of color and knowing that, everyone needs to be tweaked differently. So, when it comes to lighting. So because we had that experience, it was something that we knew in advance that like, we know how to make sure that we can, flatter our talent as best as possible. So it was more actually about the challenge of how can we make it look unique, because the color palette of the film is very blue. So that was something we actually focused on more, was like, how do we see the world that we were trying to capture?
Right, you did an excellent job with that, but by the way, because I've seen so many films in which the color is off from this shot and that shot, and it said you're not doing diligence to the actors there. So I commend you for that. For that, let's get into the story. The story itself. Uh, can you tell us the overall meaning of this film? What is your interpretation of this film?
Yeah, I think there's two layers to it, really. I think on one level, the film is a very straightforward sci-fi thriller, 7 minutes, a teaser for what we always thought could be a bigger film, like a full-on feature film, like a prologue to a bigger world. And on another level, it is about a Black woman in a position of power, facing microaggressions, being challenged by everything around her, her colleague, alien, people she's calling, doubting her, and how she continues to fight to overcome those obstacles.
Okay. And the way the film ended, I mean, we saw that Jim got killed and we were wondering, Stephanie, let's hope that she makes it. And the way you kind of drew it out, you kept us on suspense till the end with that. The plan was to, actually keep her alive and maybe open this up for a sequel or something longer. Was that
Yeah,
am I correct in my interpretation?
you are correct, and regardless of as a standalone, as a short, we know she's gonna keep fighting. We know she's riled up at the end, so it's kind of like no matter what, we know she has that mindset, which I think is very important, that you always keep fighting to the end, wherever the end may be. And then in the feature, she's still definitely got more story to tell.
Exactly, she does. Now, tell us about the setting. Was she supposed to be part of a the space station, or just kind of working in space? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the backstory on the short. I mean, we're developing the feature, so it gets a little crazier. But for the short, the backstory we kind of developed was that this was like a communications, a satellite that was down, and they have been sent out to repair it. And it's like around this planet where what even shut off the device in the first place was this alien, which we do not reveal.
Okay, so and with that said, well, one thing I was just trying to understand was, as she was talking, we could see the reflection of Jim in her helmet. I know that was intentionally done. Very clever, by the way. I don't know how you came up with this, instead of cutting back and forth. You could see that. So that was very clever way of doing that. Was that intentional to use the reflection, or you just happened upon it?
Oh no, that was fully planned. That was, one of the parameters of when shooting the short was that we could not have our actors in the same space because of COVID, because it was like 2020 peak COVID. So we were like, okay, how can we have them in the same space and not be in the same space? And we actually thought it added to the story and to the theme we were discussing, that this man's not even out there on the spacewalk with her. He's not even out there, and he's still trying to impose his position as if he had to say. Even though he ends up being in the ship waiting for her, and ultimately meets his demise. So we knew that, like, we would just always have conversations about how can you be there and not be there, while also being a reflection of what future technology can be. And that's how we came up with that.
The reflection, very good. I like that. Good. Now, in terms of filming this, how did you actually film it? Tell us about the technique you used. Since it was during COVID, did you film it in person or remotely?
Yeah, we shot in person, but what we did was we had like limited crew. We shot on a sound stage. And like, for instance, all like her helmet and everything, the suit's all real. And what we did was we put like green screen. She's behind a green screen, so the planet is a background that we later digitized and added in. But her helmet has dots, like green screen dots, and I would tell her where Jim is, where her oxygen level is, and everything on her helmet is, and I would direct her, like, you need to look left when you're talking to Jim, you need to look right, I need you to, so that it was all planned. I mean, when you're dealing with a VFX piece, if it's going to be good, you need to plan it in advance, or it can get quite chaotic.
And what about the audio? Did they read their lines separately, or did you capture their audio live and have that as part of the
he was there, but like far away, and he would like read her lines to her, that way she could track it. But yeah, I mean, sometimes we didn't have anything. I would be reading the lines to her. So very much not an ideal situation, but we made it work.
You did. Now, when she was saying her lines, did you use her actual audio, or did she re-record them later on and you edited that in?
Oh, no, we used her actual audio.
Okay.
No, that we did use.
Good. Okay, with the helmet on as well, too, you were able to get really clean audio.
We had like we had 3 different mics on her. So between them, and not only that, we kind of liked that kind of like raspy, like I'm in her helmet, I'm with her sound feel, so it actually, we think was additive to the story, that have it not be perfect.
And what about the costuming? I know for her, is that an actual spacesuit, or how did you obtain that?
No, it was an actual spacesuit. It's funny, like the team was so gung-ho about doing a space shop, but I think, I was like, if you guys want to do space, we're going to do it right. So I think sometimes my producers are like, oh my God, like this is so much. We're building miniature ships. We're buying real spacesuits. Of course, you always run out of some money. But I think, one of the things we discussed at the beginning of this, and I think it's nice to bookend it too, is like authenticity. It's real, feels real. You will become more immersed as an audience member when you believe it. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do with filmmaking. It's movie magic.
It is. Let's talk about timelines here. How long did it take to film this? How long did it take to edit it?
We shot this in 2.5 days.
Yes.
And we were supposed to have 3. And literally we had a false positive test for one of our key crew members the first day, and none of us could go to set. I had been in contact with this person. Everyone was in contact with this person. And literally we had rented all the equipment, and the soundstage was empty. No, just total burn of money. Like there's nothing we could do. And we were like, well, let's just test him again to see if it's a false positive. And it was negative. And then we tested again, and it was negative, and we got greenlit. And we got like an extra half day. We had shot out the whole 2 days and had a half day, and we shot the whole thing. And then post, we had a lot more time. If we shot in December, we shot at the end of November, top of December 2020, and we finished the film by March or April. The post was January, February, March, April, 3 to 4 months. Okay. 2021.
Wonderful. What about distribution? Where has this film screened?
Well, I think we've been fortunate to get several nominations. We were nominated for Best Short for the HBO Max competition at Martha's Vineyard African American Film Festival. We were nominated for Best Short at the NAACP Image Awards. I believe we were nominated on one or two other festivals. So we've been very fortunate that, especially the NAACP. I mean, that was, a huge honor for the team. And we're still looking for distribution, actually. Don't have any at the moment. And it's interesting. It's a film independent short. So, they would have to get involved as well before we signed off on. So it's not just like I can say yes to any distributor. There's a conversation to be had with the entire team.
Right. Is the film still being exhibited anywhere, any other festivals or?
No, the film circuit is done with the film. It is actually a part of Fox's Fox Soul, which is hosted by Vivica A. Fox, and you can actually find it on YouTube. And Film Independent did, so you can actually find the project on through Fox Soul, hosted by Vivica A. Fox. It's there now, and then now the next thing for is to continue to develop the feature, which I'm actively doing, but it's not going to be my next project. You have to scale up. Our visions for Blackout are quite grand and expensive. So as I continue to grow as a filmmaker, I'll eventually tackle that project.
Now, you mentioned some of the nominees that this film has had. What has the response been to this film? Just people in general, their immediate reaction and conversations after screening this film?
I think two things that people really respond to is like, and one of the things, to be honest, that got me really excited is that, like, we've seen Alien and we've seen like Gravity, but like I've never seen a Black woman in space do these things, and I was like, I want to see that. That was one of my notes the whole time. So with two of the things that we always hear afterwards is that they really like seeing a Black woman in this position, taking on a movie of this kind, and B, being able to shoot a movie that feels commercial and on a large scale on an indie budget, and show as an indie emerging short film director that you can make movies that look like they can become blockbusters.
Absolutely. Now, do you know if any Black female astronauts have seen this, like Mae Jemison? Do you know if they have seen this film?
I do not. That is an excellent question. No, I don't know. I would love for them to, but no, I don't know.
That would be great if they could see it and get their response to it. So you mentioned you are working on the feature of this, but what else are you working on now? You hinted at you're working on something else.
Oh no, I mean, as a filmmaker, you have to have several projects in the pipeline. So I have a project I'm pitching right now that's a horror comedy. I have disability drama. I always say that, coming from the Caribbean, being Jamaican, which is where I was born, I always say that I like to tell stories grounded in drama, but not bound by genre. And that kind of pays homage to my multicultural identity, because if you've been to the Caribbean, it's a melting pot. It's a melting pot of culture that's beautiful and rich. And those are the stories I want to tell.
Wonderful, wonderful. If it's anything like Blackout, I know we will be in for a treat. Well, Andrew Reid, director of Blackout, thank you so much for joining us and taking some time to talk to us about your film. And we wish you all the best in your endeavors.
I appreciate it. My pleasure to you as well, sir. And thanks again for taking the time to watch it.
And thank you to our audience for joining us for this important and invigorating conversation. For more information about any upcoming Cleveland International Film Festivals, please visit clevelandfilm.org. I'm Eric Siler. Thank you.